Rock the Ripple. Rock the Ripple. The Rock the Ripple podcast with Narita McInnes.
Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rock the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Narita McInnes. It is so awesome to be here with you as always. And today is another very exciting day because I have another very special guest who I cannot wait to start talking with. Now, before I do that, I just wanted to quickly announce, if you haven't heard already, that the Frequency Shift Mastermind doors are now open. We kick off in October. If you want to work with me and some other epic humans, all the information is in the description, so you can just head to that. Whether you're listening to it on just the podcast or watching on YouTube, check the description or the show notes. So I think I'm getting that right. Anyway, I'm pretty sure I said it starts in October, but the reason I'm mumbling because I've got a very special guest on. I just want to get straight to it. So head to the link, Frequency Shift Mastermind, if you're interested. And now, please let me introduce the one and only. She is an intuitive empath and soul reader. She is an energy healer, ascension coach, past life regressionist, teacher, writer, founder of the Cosmic Gateway. She is the wise, the beautiful, the one and only Alisha Braché. Alisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Narita. It's so lovely to be here and connect and have a chat with you.
Oh, it's just so cool to be here with you as well. We were talking off camera before how it's just so surreal. Like, I've watched and listened to so many of your videos, and I liked how you were just saying it's like YouTube is talking to me. So I was like, yeah, I'm having this moment.
I think we all have those moments. And I was saying to you, I've had that before. It's like you watch someone, you feel like you know someone so well, but you've never actually interacted. And when you do, it's like, oh, hang on. I gotta talk now.
Yeah, I'm talking back to the screen. Crikey. So anyway, with it, just to start things off, for anyone who hasn't talked to you on screen before and done the YouTube thing and hasn't met you, I know I've given a bit of an introduction, but that's really only the half of it. There's so much to you. So do you want to share a bit about yourself for the awesome human or humans that are listening right now?
Yeah, cool. Well, my name's Alisha. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia, and I have been working as an energy practitioner in a very broad term for most of my life. But I sort of made the transition to do this work full time about 7-8 years ago. So it's been something that I knew my entire life was a calling, and I put it off and I avoided it and I tried to sidestep it, but eventually it gets you in the end, and you click into the path that you're meant to be on. And whether you go, gracefully or kicking and screaming, you get there. Mine was probably more kicking and screaming. So here we are. But I wouldn't look back. So yeah, it's a time now, I think, that a lot of people are being called to that next step. And especially over the last couple of years, which has created so much change in our society and in our personal lives. And it really makes people, really dig deep and go, well, what's important? Who am I? Why am I here? All right, I've got to get on with it, because that calling becomes so palpable and so strong that you can't, it's like, no matter which way you want to sort of veer off the path, you kind of get pulled back in. So yeah, it's just an encouragement to anyone who feels like that there's something that's calling within them. Just trust and follow and see where it leads you.
When you say trust, I just feel like that gave me a bit of a thing here, because trust is massive, and it's like learning to trust yourself and your intuitive nudges. And actually just believing, like, it's like taking that step over the cliff and trusting that there's like something there to catch you. It's massive, isn't it?
It's huge. And I think it's only built on taking those steps and learning that you're not going to fall flat on your face, or you're not going to go down some treacherous crevice or whatever. So it can only be built on life experience.
Yeah. And is that sort of what happened with you? You're saying you were kicking and screaming, but you ended up where you're supposed to be. Is that how you learned to trust yourself even more? Because it's about trusting yourself, isn't it? really.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think I trusted in my abilities. I just didn't trust that I could create a life. I think when you're so ingrained in the matrix and you've been, working for someone else or had a career, to make that jump and leap, it's such an unknown path that it's not that you don't necessarily trust yourself, or at least I can speak from my personal experience, but it's like trusting that you can create the life that, that is going to sustain you. And because I think we grow up in a society that shies us away from that and tells us that we can't, like, artists can't make a living, and all that programming is so nonsense. And when you step out of that, you see that you are caught and you are held, and you might have some challenges along the way, but that's part of it. It's not designed to be a walk in the path, especially if it's the path of some sort of practitioner. I feel, because I think a lot of our skills that we collect along the way and that we utilize to work with others and support others has to come from life experience. I always say that a healer isn't born through doing a weekend workshop.
Love that. It's so true, isn't it?
I mean, those weekend workshops could absolutely support and help.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
And they're great to help build, but it's not like you just go there and boom,
You just magically, you've got all this wisdom and all the juicy nuggets to be able to help everyone with their path.
Yeah.
I'm sure if it was that easy, then everyone would be doing it, wouldn't they? Yeah. Oh, far out. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Is anything bubbling up before I sort of, like, I've got lists of different things to sort of just pop into, but has anything popping up right now?
I don't know if I can really formulate. I'll try.
Do it.
Just because you brought up that word trust, and that has been like kind of I can't even say the word reverberating. There we go. Got it almost close. In my mind for the last few weeks, of how we're at the precipice now as a collective, that we have to trust in, whether it's ourselves, our path, the unfolding of this dramatic story movie that's playing out on the screen. We have to really build within ourselves a level of trust that it's all playing out into the highest good, because I know that we can have our moments or our days where it looks like everything's gone to shit. But it's like when that happens, that's when everything turns. And it's like, if everyone could build that level of trust within ourselves, this movie could come to a close very, very soon.
Because it is, and when we're doing the inner work, and I think I talk about this a lot with different people anyway, when we're trusting ourselves and we're listening to ourselves and knowing who we are, that's when we can stand in our power more, and that's when we can be balanced and navigate life so much better. And when more of us are doing that, then this crazy that's going on in the world will start to balance out even more. And it's not saying there will never be polarity or duality, because that's the planet that we inhibit, but it's still, we'll still just have more of that balanced approach.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well said.
Yeah. So I mean, there's so many things that I could just jump into here. One thing that you are amazing at and that you have done is spoken to so many incredible humans on your YouTube channel, Cosmic Gateway. There's some that pop out to me, but what's been some of your highlights or some of the biggest things that maybe you've taken away from those conversations? Because everyone has different perspectives and different I guess knowledge that sort of brings together the puzzles of life. What do you think?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I haven't really thought about it. I guess I have. And initially, when I started on YouTube, it was just to do energetic reports and updates, and it was a solo thing. And then I started to get the intuitive nudge, hey, collaborate and speak to that person, hey, collaborate and speak to that person. And as you kind of go in sync with different people, you kind of resonate and have similar concepts to share or output. And it's like through those I think those conversations and what you're doing is magical, because so much more can come through than just when you're writing solo.
Mm.
And I think, at least from my perspective, I think when you're having those conversations, there's a profound energy exchange that occurs. So people might have a different concept or perspective, or have an expertise in one area. And I think when you're coming together, there is a shared synergy that occurs where you take on a little bit of that, and vice versa, they take on a little bit of what you're bringing. And so I think along the way, we kind of just start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And it wasn't till really, I think, 2020 that I started to step out and do a lot more interviews. And I didn't really, that was never on my radar. It was never, for me, it was always about the energy and the components that I felt really safe and comfortable in expressing and talking about. And I think when 2020 occurred, I was really pushed out of my comfort zone, and it said, you know, you have to talk about the other stuff, the other stuff that I know full well, but I've never
Going out there.
Yeah, and it was uncomfortable, because I was like, well, that's not my genre. But I knew that I had to kind of lean into some of those collectives and speak about the things that how I saw what was transpiring. And I think the safe and comfortable way for me was to start to bring people in who could share that, and we could have that conversation. So that was kind of like a buffering, and then it helped me grow as a person. So I'm really grateful for all those people that I've been able to collaborate with over the years, because it's given me even more confidence to speak more about dark and light and those types of things. So but I participated in doing a very intensive interview collaboration back in 2021, where I think I smashed out like 35 interviews in a very short period of time, and I probably would never do that again, because it absolutely was just insane.
How did you do that, woman?
I had about 6 weeks lead-in time, so I sort of devised a plan, put it together. I had people supporting me as well, but I think doing a lot of pre-records and then scheduling lives, and it just sort of came together. But the thing that in your question that comes to mind was, once that was done, or in the middle of it, and once it was done, I could feel the energy that was building between all the collaborative people, the components that was coming together. And I think I'm yet to witness or see this, and maybe that timeline's died off, I don't know, but I got a very strong message that was laying the foundation, that it was going to bring in down the road, more of that. And it was important that those connections were established and made. So
yeah, it's so cool. I mean, it was like a marathon, and you just, so I mean, hats off to you. I mean, 1 or 2 conversations, but to do that many in such a short time frame, and even with the lead time, it's still a lot. It's amazing, bloody incredible. So let's talk about that then. Like, you were talking about before, like having the collaborations with people. And then I guess being able to talk more your truth, but having that buffer. And then, with what the world looks like, what does it look like to you right now? I mean, you're, for anyone who hasn't ever caught any of Alicia's energy readings as well, by the way, they're incredible. So tune into those as well if you haven't, as well as all the conversations. But what do you see sort of happening at the moment energetically, and what does that mean? Like, are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I don't even know where to dive into, because I feel like we're in a big change point right now. I've often I think going back, when I sort of where I was called to step out and do this work, I was starting to see visions of how the world was going to look I didn't know sort of timeframes, but it was like this whole concept of old Earth and new Earth emerging. And I all the dreams and the visions and everything that I was getting was leading to that point. And I often, the way that I work is I see the end, but I don't see all the steps in between. So I kind of go, oh, this thing's happening, and boom. um, and I feel like we're at a change point right now where we're in, like, I've used different terminology, but it's like we're in the preparatory phase of entering into this new space of new reality that we're co-creating collectively. And I think we're in a place where we're starting to have energetic support that's allowing our bodies to change and transform. It's obviously changing our consciousness. And it's a period of where we're learning to trust again. So that word trust. Because I think for so many of us, we've been broken down necessarily, not, there's no victimhood around that. We've been broken down because we needed to be, but now we're entering into a phase where it's rebuilding ourselves, restructuring ourselves, and building our trust so that we can be in a more expansive, magical state of what I truly believe is our original organic expression as human beings. And so we're learning to trust again, but also in this space where opening up to vast potentiality and what we're able to do, and I think we're in this kind of new, what I believe that I am, and some of the people, many of the people that I have spoken to, in this new space of learning again, what is it like to be able to be free from restriction or limited programming, and how can we create and start to build the new world?
Yes. Yeah, I totally resonate with that. Absolutely. Like, it's just phenomenal, the message that keeps coming through, just even this week as well, just confirmation about, we've been through some really tough times and learnings and experiences. And now what is it that we want to create? What does that look like? And I love how you said, like, without the patterns and programs, because that's a lot of the work that so much of us have been doing, is releasing those old limiting beliefs, letting those layers come off, so we can step into who we truly are and create what it is that we want to create, which is, I don't know, it could be, I mean, I don't know what it looks like, but it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm in a little bit of an incubation phase, so I don't have all the words to articulate what that really means. But I've been, I guess you could say, teaching or learning dream space for now a couple of weeks, and the concepts that are coming through, or what I'm able to actually do or experience, is what I've always known, but it's like, oh goodness, it's here now. It's like starting to drop in, So I'm excited. I'm really excited for when that energetic, let's say, template has landed or anchored in within us, and what the physical implications of that will be.
Yeah, what it will look like. Yeah, for each of us. It's so cool. And, like, I guess because I know so many of us will go, well, what's it going to look like? And when's it going to happen? And that sort of stuff. But it's also coming again back to trusting the timing, trusting the flow of it all, and just everything unfolding as it should. Yeah.
I think so. And I think it may look very different for everyone. So it's like coming back to, like you were saying, what do you want to create? What does your new earth reality look like? What are your skills and abilities? And once you've learned and mastered that, then how can you output that into the world and share that to teach others? And so that we can all have this access to all these superhuman powers that are innate within us and always have been. They've just been dormant for a very long time.
A very long time. Oh, far out. Okay. Anything else coming up for you right now? Because there's many things I have written down. Okay.
Fire away.
Okay. Well, so I, as an energy practitioner and all the work that you do, how do you receive your messages? How do you tap in? How do you trust your guidance? And what does that look like for you? Because I know it's different for all of us, and each of us are learning our own ways of feeling into what our messages and our knowings are. What does that look like for you?
I think it comes in all different ways for me. I'm highly visual, so often it will come through in a vision or through a dream. Sometimes there's messages like words or just knowings, intense knowings. Sometimes it comes through as a voice or a dialogue that I know is my higher self directly communicating with me. Sometimes when I know the energy is a little bit off, either within myself or collectively, I try to not go with the auditory guidance, because I think that can be heavily manipulated. And so very cautious around that. But I often say to people, it's like what you feel that comes from within the heart space, knowing that you can trust that, and that's true. And it's a feeling, it's a sensation of like when messages and information comes through, of how does it feel in your body when you receive that, to know whether to trust it or not. It's a feeling, it's something that you can't sort of quantify into words. It's just like when something comes through and you just know, okay, but I would say my dreams have always been a big component of my intuitive guidance, and being able to see things ahead of time, or getting information through that way, has always been a highly active space for me.
Have you had any cool dreams lately, Alisha?
Yeah. I think in general terms, the last, I can't even put it into time frame, the last while, which could encompass the last few months, have very much been experiencing or witnessing parallel realities, as those expressions of reality are closing off. So I'm sort of going into other versions of myself so that I can call back. It's almost like kind of like what people consider a soul retrieval process. It's like as I go into those realities, they're closing off, and then I'm bringing more of me back to me here and now. And I think that's the process that's undergoing for many, because once we're more unified within ourselves, our energy, our confidence, our consciousness, that's where we're able to access more abilities and enter into this new reality space that is being created through us, and then experienced in the external reality.
That's so cool. As you were saying that, I was just getting a picture of just like you or any of us just standing there, and just those bits coming back into our energy field. Is that sort of what it's like?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome.
And just to explain that in terms that other people might understand, like if people have done things like in a child healing, where you go back and you heal the inner child and you reclaim it back to you, it's like that, but more multiverse.
More multiverse.
Which is, it's kind of cool, because that was the concept that was given to me many years ago, which is the process of personal ascension. We reclaim all of us back to us, and that's where we go through the quantum jump or leap within moving through reality.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. So there's so many of us that are really going through this right now. Do you think that I'm pretty sure you will say yes to this. We chose to be here at this time, and we chose the path that we're walking, even though we do have free will. We still, we maybe chose our parents, we chose the lessons that we want to learn. Maybe not every little thing that's happened, but and it's up to us to choose how to respond to everything that's happened. We're always at a point. Do you kind of feel that as well, or can talk to that a bit more?
Yeah. First thing that comes to mind is like, why would you want to be anywhere else during this time right now? I know that it's hard and, you know, it can be terrifying at times, but when you look and take in the vastness of the bigger picture, you actually wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And I think many souls that don't have a physical body and aren't incarnated at this time, they're all watching, and you know, we actually have a ticket to be here, to live through this experience. So yeah, it's but I think we are on the precipice of going through something that's never been done before. So of course, when we come in and we have our amnesia and we forget why we came here, who we are, what we are capable of, and we're going through the hard testing and the initiation. You know, I mean, I can raise my hand and honestly say there's been many times where I'm like, I'm done, like tap me out, like beat me up or whatever, like but when it's those moments that define you, and when you work through and you come out the other side of that, and there's many of them, I'm not gonna lie, like it's not like you go through that once. You know, there's many times. Each time you become a little bit stronger, a little bit more clearer, and you know, I have this concept where, you know, we are, or Earth, in some schools of thought, you know, Earth is one of the only places where it's a free will planet, and that was somewhat of an experiment to see how that would go. And I think that, I don't know if I can speak for everyone on this, but I have a concept that there is a nexus point that occurs in our own individual path, where we're kind of stepping out of free will into what I call divine will. And it's still, you know, we still have agent in that. I don't want people to think that, you know, our choices get taken away, but it's when, it's almost like when more of the soul drops in, and whatever you've written before coming here, that you wrote into your script of what you were going to do, how you were going to contribute, and how things were going to play out. If you were far away from that in exercising your free will, that's where people go through very, very abrupt changes in their life, where they lose their job, their marriage breaks up, you know, they lose, you know, all that is actually kind of redirecting us onto that soul path. Where we're then kind of put into the straight and narrow, so that we get to work and get the job done of what we wrote into our experience before coming here. That's my take on it. That's what I believe.
That feels, it's like clicking in the train tracks, like getting it into where you're supposed to be, and the path that you wrote, like you said, you wrote the script. That's so beautiful. And then that's when you can be your highest potential version in that as well. So you're beaming your light at the highest potential, and that's what we need, don't we, right now? That's what we need. So cool. Oh man, there's so many things. Multi-dimension. So you've had some really cool chats. Let's I want to shift a tiny bit. You've had a really cool chat with a lady, Louise Duffy, a few times actually. And she's awesome, and I think you're going to be better at explaining some of this, just to go a bit out there, and you'll introduce it better, but maybe not so much her story, but just to talk about the different sort of energies and what we can experience here in this planet that is beyond the 3D, and tapping into just understanding, I guess, that you know, obviously there is so much more, and I know that people listening to you or I will know that anyway, but just what's coming up with me even just saying that, whatever flows out.
Did you want to talk about like well, obviously Louise is phenomenal. So thank you, Louise, if you're watching this, for
Yeah, she
your
is.
contribution and sharing. So she worked as a psychiatric nurse for about 30 years, but she's highly insensitive, highly intuitive. And whilst working in that, she was actually, I guess you could say she was a bit of a lighthouse in one of those darker, denser, you know, facets of our 3D structure. And she could see what was going on from the different dimensional realms, if you want to call it that, you know, the non-physical and the physical. So having a very, very different perspective on mental health and potentially what energies are behind that are creating our so-called, you know, mental health conditions. Things like, you know, psychosis or borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, you know, all those sorts of things. And that really lights me up because that's a perspective that I've taken from many, many years. Coming from working in mental health background myself, we kind of share a very similar sentiment around those things. And, you know, I think that's a big part of what needs to be cleaned up, and creating new places where people can truly heal and not be doped up and put on medication to be numbed out, because these people are having, you know, attachments or darker energies that are attaching to them, that are manipulating their actions, their behaviors, their thoughts, their physical body. And I think that the non-physical aspect or the energetic aspect, if it's not addressed, that's when it seeps into the physical. So everything starts in the energetic before it manifests physically. So she shared an amazing amount of light on, you know, how she had seen, you know, people having these outbursts and almost, you know, demonic possessions, and the energies that were manipulating from through them or working through them. And I can honestly say I've seen that all my life. It's you know, initially very, very scary and very confronting, and then you sort of become a bit more desensitized to it. I've spoken to many, many people who have been institutionalized and have been sensitive and have those abilities to be able to see it and confirm it over and over again. So yeah, it was interesting. Years ago, when I was working in my old my old world, my old life job, we were called into like I think it was 2.5-day training of first aid, mental health first aid. So like you go to your first aid training, but this is specifically around how to handle mental health. And I was just sitting there in such a different perspective than I think my colleagues. And I was looking at how they broke down and explained all the different diagnosis and the symptoms, and I was just viewing it from a spiritual perspective and having so many aha moments. And yeah, I find that topic very, very fascinating. Is there any questions that you have around that?
Yeah,
I mean,
so many. Like, so, I mean, but and that's the bit that I probably left out as you're saying, that because of your experience as well, you guys could collaborate and have confirmation on different things as well. But with your experience, like, when, I guess maybe what some people might be interested to know as well is, do you see it in your mind's eye, or do you physically see it, or is it both when you're seeing what's going on?
It's a bit of both. I would say the vast majority, and I say this to people, the vast majority of it is through my mind's eye. Sometimes it does drop in and I can see it like manifest physically.
Yeah.
But I would say that that's a much lesser portion of the time. So, you know, I often say to people, everyone is psychic, everyone has these abilities, but we dismiss it as I have a highly active imagination, or that's too out there, that's crazy. I can honestly say that after going through many abrupt sort of activations and up leveling in my skills and abilities, I came to the conclusion that everything I thought was a vivid imagination of mine was actually more real than this physical reality. To trust in that. And so when people say, oh, I want to open my third eye and I want to switch on that ability, I was like, you probably are utilizing it a lot more than you think. Because I think people think when you become psychic, all of a sudden what people are seeing is all, like a movie in front of you. And don't get me wrong, that is some people's experience, and that's how some people do. But I think the vast majority of the time it's through the perception rather than the actuality. So yeah. But I think it's the other senses too. It's not just seeing. Everyone can have an interaction with someone and feel off by it, or it's just listening to your body. Your body's so in tune with energies. We all are. And it's just really trusting, and not allowing our conscious mind to override and go, oh, well, maybe it was that, or maybe it was that. No, trust.
That is the theme for today, I reckon. Trust, isn't it? It's so trust. I mean, all right. So with that, and I think that really is, I think we probably just need to stay there for a second. Trust really is, because I think so many of us dismiss things, and we've all not listened to our intuition or our heart sometimes, and we've gone the wrong way. We've been slapped in the face. But so when you're well, maybe what are some of the experiences? What are some of the things that are you happy to share? Some of the things that that'd be cool to hear.
Yeah. Where to go? I'll open up with this. Because I mentioned in the beginning, healers aren't born overnight through, a weekend workshop. And I totally don't want to disregard, people's training, because I do it too. And I think that is needed. It was around 20, after 2012, the calling was kind of getting stronger within me, and I hadn't made that leap yet. And I was still very much trapped in working in the corporate world. And I needed something. It was like my spiritual side had been shut down or closed off. So I started to invest in doing different courses, and learning different modalities. And it was great because each one of them, you take something from that. It may not be the entire course or the whole modality, but you take in something from that. And it was helping me reawaken within me. And I think it was around 2013, the beginning of 2013, I did a quantum healing course over a weekend. And I was told that was really important. It was something that I had to immerse myself in, and that if I did that, then the people would start to come. And I had some pretty profound experiences after that, where random people in my life who I hadn't spoken to in a really long time just started randomly texting me saying, I used to think that you were batshit crazy, but now I realize that you just knew more than most people. And I want to learn from you, what you know. And so I was starting to see, as I was going through a shift, there were people who had been in my life that were starting to make, prominent shifts. But it was around that time anyway, energetically, that people were starting to come into an awakening. And it was after that a new thing had opened up for me. So I was still working in my corporate job, but I started to, once again, on the weekends and at night, start to take on clients and do this type of work. And it was changing profoundly. And I have two very special women who have since transitioned in my life, my grandmother and my auntie. And I was saying to you, my auntie Narita, and I'd had a reading done too, and the connection or their presence was very strong around me. Often I get told that, in that side of the family, we're like three peas in a pod. We're all very similar. And I started to have this experience where, when I wanted to open up and connect into the energetic realm and to open up, before I would start to work on a client or do any sort of intuitive work, I would see this amazing kind of sphere or portal open up above my head, and it was like bright light. And I would watch it for a moment. And then all of a sudden I would see my auntie and my grandmother appear.
Oh, what?
And then with that, I would just be immersed in overwhelm of emotion that would come over me, and I would start to seep, and the tears would come.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. And that's when I knew that I was connected into the flow of the frequency that was like going to start to work through me. So connecting into source or divine consciousness. But they were like the the portal keepers, let's say, like they were the ones that were I was familiar with, that they were opening and giving me access to that. And there was always so much joy coming from them. And then I would start to work. And that I reflect on that really fondly, because that was when I started to notice my work really starting to change and to have a greater connection, perhaps. And it was through them, through people who I was very close with that I knew. And that doesn't happen anymore, because obviously a lot of time has passed and things continue to evolve and change. But that was one, pretty cool connection that sort of started for me, back then. And since then, it's just become wilder and wilder. I mean, I could talk about so many experiences. I don't know where you
want. Go for it. I'm here for it all.
Oh goodness me.
That's so special though, isn't it? Just that it's like they were, like you said, the guiding lights, and just you, because that you can trust, it's a knowing, isn't it? It's just a knowing, and you can explain it to anyone who will either believe you or not. Doesn't matter. You just know it. Doesn't matter if they, because that's just so special. It's such a special thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And I think also what comes to mind is I studied and trained as a teenager to start to develop my skills and abilities, and I was really good at some things and really bad at other things. Or it just wasn't my jam, and mediumship was like not a thing for me. Like I just was not good at being able to access names, and over the years I would try, and sometimes it would be like mind-blowing connections and accuracy was off the charts, and other times like nothing would happen. But I think it was after that experience of my own sort of ancestors, if you will, my own relatives, that created a stronger link. So after that, when I was starting to do more sessions, if people had loved ones, and this is something I can't pull in at will, so just as a disclaimer, but if people had loved ones that were very close to them, it was like when I accessed that energy, they would come through. And it's pretty spectacular, because it's not just me being the mediator for those messages. It's creating a space where the person gets to experience that connection themselves. And I've had so many profound, heart-opening moments or heartwarming moments where I felt the presence of a mother or a father or, whoever come through for that person at that time to console them and to give them faith or reassurance that things were going to change or they'll be looked after. And after the session, they were like, oh my goodness, like my mum was here or my dad was here. They came in, they were standing on this side, they held my, I was like, yeah, they were, so to be able to be a facilitator for that is like beyond phenomenal. Yeah. Very, very fulfilling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Just as you're saying that, I just feel your heart expanding. It's such a beautiful, special thing. And for people to, especially when people have gone through some tough times or they've lost someone, or, just to have that connection and that, because we are all connected, and everyone is there. It's just that, so how phenomenal, beyond phenomenal is the word. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Everyone is still there. They're just in a different frequency bandwidth, and we just need to attune to that to be able to reconnect.
Yeah, because energy's it's never created or destroyed. It's just changes form. And and I think as well, those kind of messages will come through at the right time too, like for people when they're connecting as well.
I actually had my own experience last night, and I will share this.
Oh, do it. Yeah.
I had a very close person in my life for a long time who passed away about 7 years ago, and I connected with him last night. It's been a while. He used to come through much more regularly, but we were in like a meeting space, and he said to me, "We don't have long. We've only got an hour," you know. But what I took away from that, or what I can, it's a bit vague now, but I was like, oh my goodness. So going back to what I was saying about how we're in this new space and we're learning again of what we can do. In that moment, I was like, I now have access into that place at will, that I can connect with whoever's on the other side. Or I believe, this is only my belief, I think that a lot of people who have transitioned or passed on, because let's face it, there's been a lot of people who have transitioned, especially in the last few years. I believe that was their sole choice to make that transition, that they are still going into the new earth reality where we're all moving into. They've just chosen to go through in a different way than us who are here, and transforming the body physically to match that vibration. They've chosen to kind of disconnect from this reality and go into the other. And it was almost in that moment I was like, oh, I now have access to go back and forth as I choose. So I'll be interested to see how that unfolds. So
So will I. That is very cool. Very cool. It's like, yeah, I mean, we're walking in two worlds here, but then they're there, but they're here anyway, because everything's here anyway, isn't it? All the dimensions, everything is just, we don't see it. But perhaps as our abilities open more and more, the more we'll be able to see, the more we can shift.
Yeah. And just making those subtle shifts and changes within our energy, we can experience whole different.
Yeah. You were talking about quantum healing before, and that's something that I met a beautiful person and then became an awesome friend. And I did that, I don't know how many years ago now, maybe 8 years ago or so. We did a few sessions together, and it's phenomenal. So that's something that you offer with what you do, or similar with the regressions and things like that?
I guess you could say that. It's not, how do I say this? Everything that I've accumulated, I then sort of came through my own unique style of working has come through me, based on all the different learnings and teachings that I've gathered over the years. But yes, I would say quantum healing, not as I was taught it back then, but it is kind of merged into what I do. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I mean, any sort of energy work with a trusted practitioner like yourself, someone who, has done the work, has experienced the work as well. I mean, we were talking about different experiences, and I remember with this beautiful soul, like, we were talking before about whether we see things or if we and the house that she was living in, and one of the, because I went to a few different places, and I remember I had to go to the bathroom and I was like, I'm gonna go to the loo. And as I was finishing my business, I looked up and I saw like a leg walk through the doorway, and that was a physical thing. And like, I wasn't scared. It wasn't a scary thing, but it was just, she feels like it was like the house as well. They were renting there for just a short time and stuff like that. But it was just, I don't know, when you were talking about that, I just thought I wanted to share that experience with you for some reason. So I'm not sure if there's a reason behind it or not. So time will tell. But so when you work with people, do you also have those kind of things sort of happen as well? Yeah, it's just the normal day, really. What am I talking about?
So you saw the leg, like, was it walking, moving, floating?
It's like it was walking through the door. I knew, I intuitively knew it was a guy, and it was just like they were walking through. And she actually she knew exactly what I was talking about, and she could see other stuff as well, which I couldn't see. But I was just like, oh shit, but I wasn't scared, if that makes sense. So it's just, I don't know if it was just their house and they were just still hanging out in a different dimension and maybe just attuned to that frequency or something like that.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, I love the topic of house and energy, and
Yeah.
I for the first time ever, I taught a house and land clearing program in the beginning of the year, because
Oh.
I realized that that's something that I just have a lot of knowledge around. I've had a lot of experience around, but I don't actually, like, it's not on my services list. It's just something that I do by request. And there were so many people coming in at that time asking for that. I was like, I just need to teach everyone because, and so, talking about like energetic imprints, um, whether it's that person has passed on or whether it's just like that's where their energy was most predominant in the house, but there's always a lot of trapped energy into a house. And I truly believe that we get called to a house for a specific reason. And I've heard so many times people tell me that they moved into a house or they moved out of a house, and the person who moved in was like basically in their life story. So, like, say, for example, someone had gone through a divorce, was in the throes of separation, was doing this, and this, and then they've been on that journey in that house, they've sold it. The next person that's moved in is starting their divorce, starting the separation, and it's amazing how energy just attracts or calls in, like attracts like, right?
Mm.
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 Oh, that is so. Yeah, and that's so those things. Yeah, can you talk more about that? 'Cause I can't get my words out. But I think that's so fascinating, and I guess that's why I told that story,
Mm.
because you are doing these house clearings, and you've got. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. um Well, I've had many of my own experiences. I truly believe that most of the houses that I've been called to live in, especially over the last decade, I've been called in to clean up um, whatever needed to be cleaned up. And once that process is done, then I can move on. But yeah, I've moved in and had, uh, oh, okay, yeah, all right. I lived in a house. It was one of my favorite houses. And it was when I was going through a big spiritual growth process, but I was in a very, very dark phase of my life.
mm,
I was very, very depressed, very, very disconnected. I was having a lot of suicidal thoughts,
mm,
and I couldn't pinpoint why. Like, for the life of me, I could not pinpoint why I was feeling so low. I was working in mental health, and I think I was absorbing a lot of what was happening in my work life, but it was kind of more than that. And um, I kind of, when you get to that point, you ask questions. And I'm big, big believer in asking questions, and the answer will always come.
mm,
And I did. I asked the question, why am I having these thoughts? Why am I feeling so low? Um, there's nothing in my life matched the feeling that I was going through. And within a few days, the partner at the time that I was living with happened to speak to the neighbor. Now, we hadn't really engaged with the neighbors up until that point. And the neighbor kind of had a throwaway line of, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're living in that house. I can't believe that anyone would live in that house." And then
oh,
went, "Oh, I said too much," kind of thing. So it was like this little interaction. So after a bit of investigation, found out that someone had suicided in that house. And so with that information and knowledge, because I think what I was doing prior to that, having that come into my awareness, I was just absorbing and merging with the energy that was in the house. And
mm,
obviously he hadn't been able to transition on properly. So with that information, I did a clearing and I scanned, and I was able to connect with him and move him on. And after that, everything changed for me. All those feelings went away.
yeah.
And friends of mine who weren't even really that intuitive would come around afterward, and they were like, "Oh, have you like painted the walls, or have you redecorated?" 'Cause they could noticeably feel and sense the lightness in the house that had transformed, but they thought it was I had redecorated, which I hadn't. I had just cleared the energy.
Oh, wow. That's full on. And the fact that, yeah, that they've noticed it as well. And so when you were living there, were you then, did you feel the pull to then move after that?
Yeah, I don't think it was that much longer. Actually, I think it coincided with the owner then wanting to sell the house, and then yeah, and
Wow.
then so we moved on at that point, and then I got thrown into another house that I did not live at for long at all, and similar thing, not so much a previous tenant, but there was a really dark energy that was in that house. So once I cleared that, it was time to move on, and a new home was waiting for me.
And more clearing at the next home as well? Yeah?
Yeah.
Far out, woman. You're like the I just see you as this, cleaner of energy just everywhere you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
where you are now, are you gonna stay there for a while or?
look, I don't know. I'm happy here. I'm very happy
Mm,
to stay here. I have no plans of moving, but I think it's sort of maybe not so much, yeah, up to my human.
mm,
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure. I'm very happy here. So
mm. Yeah, yeah.
mm.
So, there's just I love these stories. So my brain is just going at different like things, like where to go. Have you got anything that's popping in for you? Because I know that that can happen too.
Mm,
Mm.
no, so many things, but no, I'm happy for you to throw
Keep
it.
chin
Yeah.
wagging. I know when I was talking to Anna, who you know, like we were having like we both had these moments of just like total brain farts as well, or where the thought would just go straight out and we'd be like, there's nothing here. We know we're like talking, but that happens anyway in any normal conversation. So we're just like, yeah. I mean, I love all the psychic stuff, and I think it's good for people to hear stories because sometimes like you can then ask the question, if you're getting these feelings like you did in the first house and experience, you ask the question, is this mine as well?
Mm,
Like it's a really powerful question, isn't it? Because like I love what you said, ask the question, why is this happening?
mm,
And are these thoughts actually mine?
mm.
Mm,
And I would say a large portion of the time it will come back and it will be
yeah.
mm,
Mm,
for people who are energetically sensitive. But I think a big part of what we're unraveling is this programming that is this unconscious programming that weaves through all of us as a collective that has kept us suppressed, and um, oh, yeah, suppressed. There was a whole heap of other words. I'm like, oh, I don't need to go there. That's very strong. But um, once we kind of unravel from that, then and start to operate from a high level of consciousness, that's a game changer, really. Um, that's a game changer for ourselves and for humanity.
mm,
Mm,
yeah. And I think that's part of why we're here, isn't it? Well, I think it is the reason we're here, to step into that higher level of consciousness. But
mm,
not everyone is here for that, which doesn't make it right or wrong. Do you
mm,
feel that that's there for the balance? And I guess everyone's journey is unique, and everyone's path is the path that they're supposed to be walking anyway.
mm.
But what can you say to that?
I think it's very vast and very individual. I think Earth is such a rare place where we can have experiences that we can't have anywhere else. And so, no matter what it looks like on the outside, everyone is having their own growth experience, no matter what it looks like.
Mm,
And just because our path may look one way and someone else's looks a different way, it doesn't mean that they're not part of this process,
mm,
and they're just having their own experience. And I think someone once mentioned, and it was a big aha for me. It was like, that all these people are doing immense amounts of healing and work and clearing, and like that's their profession, that's what they do vast majority of the time. And then there's people who just seem to be completely unaware of anything, like that. you know they chose to come in and have very 3D experiences. That was their path. They wanted to come in and have the marriage, the children, the job, the car, whatever it is. But everyone will get there. I truly believe that everyone will. It's just a matter of how their path wants to experience until they make a shift or transition. So I think it's very individual. It looks different for everyone.
Yeah, really does, doesn't it? It's yeah. And we're all painting our own picture, or designing or writing our own script, before and after and now. Well, everything's happening now, let's be honest, in this moment. I just I'm just okay, let me just look at my list, everybody. Well, I did ask you about what's playing out.
What do you see playing out?
You know what? Thanks for asking. Good question. You know what? I'm with you. I see that this is a time where we have, like I said before, we've done a lot of this work. We've done a lot of the clearing, and we're stepping more into our power, those of us that have chosen to. But as a collective, we are. I mean, the amount of people that have just sort of switched on in this last sort of time, it's just gone so quick. But it's more about now that we know, now that we've sort of done a lot of work, what is it that we want to create? What does that look like? And we've taken off the shackles, and now we get to see what it is. And I don't know what that looks like. But I just know that we get to play. And that's not to say that there's not shit things that are going to happen or that have happened or anything like that. More light is coming to all of that stuff, and it's all been there anyway, to a lot of that stuff anyway. So more of it's just coming into balance, and the more that we come into balance, then the more that the consciousness raises. And then conversations like this as well, like I feel like they're rocking the ripple, and we don't know how far they're going to go, how far that ripple will go. And I'm just picturing all of us just like riding that ripple and the wave and just going, yeehaw, like what are we going to do now? What are we going to create? So what it looks like, I don't know, but that's the exciting part, isn't it? Because we get to create and co-create together.
And maybe part of that isn't yet created, therefore we can't see it because we're in the process of creating it. There may be like a fine blueprint to it, but it's almost like an analogy of like a house structure, but it hasn't been filled in and decorated, and that's what we get to do. Like there's a structure or a framework for that, but the unique expressions that are put into that are yet to be kind of moving into a house.
I love that so much. I love a good analogy, because that, exactly. Yeah. We know it's going to be a beautiful house. How about we just don't know what it looks like yet? And everyone can design it however they want. And, but it's great. I love that. I love that so much, Alisha. Far out. So, healing. I mean, we've gone over a lot of stuff. The multi-dimension. I'm just trying to read my own writing. Not wearing my glasses, so I can try and be really cool here. Which is clearly not paying off. And cycles, timing, divine timing. There's just so much on there, and the different healing modalities as well that you do. I mean, I love what you said before. Because you've done so much work and so much healing, you've learned so much, but I love that you've created your own sort of spin on it, because I think I don't think we need to always follow exactly, like it works in places, and definitely it has its place, definitely not taking away from that. But when you've worked with so many people and you've had so many experiences, you bring all of that to the table when you're working with someone, and that is such a gift. That is such a gift.
I just went through this process last weekend where my storage was full, so I keep record of every session, every interview, every recording, every video, you name it. And my storage was full, and it was prompting me to buy more storage. And I was like, I'm not buying more storage. So I downloaded and transferred it onto a hard drive, but it was also like an analogy of like, you need to clear space for what's to come, like the new access to new, ways of doing things. And just from 3.5 years, 3.5 years, there were thousands of client sessions and over 400 videos it took me all day.
Oh, imagine.
I was like, wow, that's a lot of work. Like, you don't, day to day, you don't take it all in and just think about how much has really been done in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's kind of huge. But to speak to I think it's individual for people. Some people really like structure and really like format and need those teaching, if they feel called to learn a modality, they need that structure of how it is taught and how to operate and go through the steps. And I think people who work highly intuitively or a bit more creative, artistically creative, I think it's already built within us, our own way of doing things. We just need to kind of bounce off other learnings and teachings to activate that within us and then go forth and create our own. And I think we put our own unique spin on it based on our soul's journey, what we've already learned, what is held within us, and of course the life's experiences that shape us and the experience that comes along the way. So I one of people who work with me know that I am a big advocate for find your own way. Take on what I'm teaching or what we're sharing together, and then access your own intuition to go and do what's uniquely your path.
I love that. And I remember as well, when I was having a conversation with Donovan, and he was talking about how numerology, like he's obviously the number vibrationalist, that was the thing that helped him develop his ability. So it kind of kick-started it, but then different things come in, which is the same for you. And then you develop your own way of intuiting what feels right. And so sometimes, so the structure can be great to start, but then opens up just that whole massive pathway of like, okay. So I love that you teach people as well when that's fantastic. So you teaching anyone at the moment, doing any things that people can jump into, or?
Not formally. I don't have any classes at this point. I will at some stage, but it's only when I get called to do that. I do do it on request all year round. If people do come to me and say, I want to learn or be mentored, I do that by request, but no programs at the moment. I'm waiting for all this new stuff to come through, and I think that's going to create a whole new body of work, which was hence clearing out the storage. Because I've taught many programs over the years, and I've had a lot of and I feel like the next thing's ready to drop in. So I'm just I'm just listening and exploring. But I have a question for you.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Have you noticed any noticeable changes in your body or any abilities that are starting to come online that are different of late? Just when you mentioned like
tell the story.
No, when you said, I don't have my glasses, I was like, have you noticed like better hearing or better clarity with your vision, or I don't know, anything physically in your experience that is changing your body biology?
I think subtle things, subtle shifts, different things happening in the ears. But I don't, and obviously we were talking about the weeping thing before, which I think was quite interesting. I think because I've always been a big feeler, so I'm saying think but feel. So that's definitely always been quite switched on. But I Oh, it's actually, now that you say it, okay, thank you. Different, like, so, I mean, obviously these are just like really simple things, but just knowing that someone is thinking of me,
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
like,
Yeah.
like, I'm noticing it way more, like
Yeah.
way more. Like I might be going for a walk, listening to a podcast, and all of a sudden I think of my friend or someone, and I grab out my phone and they've just sent me a text message.
Yeah.
And I know that they're like simple things, but that's been happening more and more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've definitely been noticing that.
Yeah. Perfect example. And I think it is the little simple, subtle things that they're the things to pay attention to as they're incrementally getting stronger.
Because it's happening more and more, and like people will say and use it that as an example, but you're right, that's happening like pretty much every day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is awesome. What about you?
Um, I've noticed this entire time that we're talking about like the intense frequency that's going through my ears. So I'll talk about these learning dreams that I've had. And 2 nights ago, I was actually hearing with my actual. So when I teach, I talk about objective and subjective abilities. So we have, when we're talking about clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentient, and all the different, levels that we can perceive energy on. There's the objective, which is tangible, physical, and there's subjective, which is more, etheric. And I think the phase that we're moving in, I get excited. I think the phase that we're moving into is having more of an objective physical experience of what has been the subtle impressions. And so how that was translated or portrayed to me as an example was, we may hear messages in our ears subjectively, like a voice being like narrated to us, or we might hear high pitch frequency sounds or having those telepathic moments. But as I was lying in the in-between space, I was physically hearing sounds in my house that weren't there physically, if that makes sense. They were physical sounds that I was hearing objectively that were dropping in from a non-physical space.
Mm.
And so I was starting to get this, I'm still fumbling over my words because I can't, but I think that's the space that we're moving into, that there's more tangibility into what prior has been more energetic or subtle. It's more, so yeah, I think noticing, like, I was actually hearing conversations as though they were being spoken out loud. I was hearing, different sounds in the house. So that was new.
Very deep. And does it sound like it's over there, or does it sound like it's in your like right
No,
near?
it was actually like there was like someone in the house having a conversation when there wasn't.
Wow.
Like, yeah, physically. Yeah. So yeah, I guess things like that. Yeah.
Oh,
And that's why I'm in this sort of incubation phase right now of just observing and witnessing what is being able to be accessed. So yeah, and to make sense of it and learn from it.
Yeah, that is super cool. I noticed and I said it to my partner as well. I'm like, I mean, it's like a sound next to my ear. It's like a crack. It's not a crackling, but it's like, that's the best word I can use. Like, you're fumbling for words before, because sometimes it's hard to explain some things with words, because but I could hear it, but it wasn't like a sound coming from anywhere, but it wasn't inside my head either. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's just a crackle, like maybe like the radio coming on. So I found, yeah.
Because you know how people talk about like tuning into a frequency, like tuning into a radio station. Maybe that was like your version of,
Maybe. And because the fact that you brought this question up and then have gone there and having I'm like, I mean, this was just happening like yesterday, and like so, and it's not the first time it's happened. And I've just been also noticing, like last night before falling asleep, noticing a sound, and like I'm like, I hear that sound every night, but it's like it's like a the floors like might creak or whatever, but why is it that particular sound in that exact spot? There's nothing there. Like, what is there? Do you know
Mm,
what I mean? So
mm,
it's just so interesting that you're saying that as well.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, pay attention for
Mm,
you and for people listening, pay attention to the subtle anomalies that are changing in your reality, because
mm,
that's like tangible, noticeable shifts that things are changing.
mm. Yeah. It's such an exciting time. And to not be like, yeah, just take it all in. I remember my friend who I was talking about before, who had the experiences with, and she's like, she would say to me, because she's very tapped in, and she's like, it's it's not something just out of the corner of your eye, like, like be aware of what those things are. And a lot of that stuff does happen in the peripheral too, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's kind of where it begins,
Mm,
or how I was taught that's where it begins, is because you have a greater access in that space in the peripheral vision. And if you can focus on that and hold that level of vibration, you can like then zone in and focus in on that, um, and sort of bring more of conscious awareness to that. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to be able to hold and maintain a level of deep breathing. So
mhm.
it's like deepening the breath helps us to attune into more of a subtler or a different vibration. So if you, like, let's say you catch something in the corner of your eye, and you just take a couple of deep breaths and hold and just kind of scan through, you might be able to capture and bring that into vision.
Mm. Oh, that is such a cool trick you've just, yeah. I'm just like, if anyone's like watching this and they're just like they've already started doing it right now, we're like, oh, like, but it's good to play, isn't it?
Mm.
Because
Yep.
we aren't just our body. We're existing on so many levels, and there's just so much to us, and our multi-dimensionality. I can't even say it, but you know what I'm saying. But that is like, it's just, yeah, it's just so fun. It's
Mm.
fun. And to again trust. We're
Mm.
gonna put that in the title somewhere, I think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's so big. It's so
Mm.
big. So I don't know how long we've been talking now. I'm looking at the time like, oh shit, we have been talking for quite a while. um where can people best find you, Alicia, and tap into all the amazing services and offerings that you have?
Just through my website, so cosmicgateway.com. So it's cosmic G and then the number 8 way.com, just to make it,
Very cool.
yeah. Yeah, just through the website, and all the details are there, and people can contact me through there.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll link that in the description and the show notes as well. Is there anything else you want to share before we go? Actually don't want to go, but like, I just feel like, you've got to have your day, and people need to eat and pee and do other things as well. They might be doing it now, who knows?
Yeah, just to summarize, like, trust, play, be observant of your reality. If you're stuck and you don't understand something, or you feel like things aren't moving, ask the question, is it yours? Or how can I have a solution? And allow that to drop in for you, and know that you're always guided, and that you do have support, whether it's yourself, your higher self, beings on the other side, loved ones, whatever. There's a lot of energetic support that we can access, and that it's available to us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's love it. Love it. Definitely a perfect note to end on. So thank you so much, Alicia, for your time and for being here, and for you for listening and being here as well in this co-creation conversation of awesomeness that we have just had. It has just been amazing. Thank you so much, Alicia. And I look forward to catching up with you next time. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If you're listening on the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, give it a review. And again, thank you just so much for being here. Thanks, Alicia.
Thank you, Narita.